The rain-slicked streets of San Francisco gleamed under the sodium lamps like shattered glass. And I was running, heart pounding, shoes slapping puddles, because the man I just kissed for the first time had vanished in a puff of smoke that smelled like sage and regret. "Wait!" I shouted into the fog, my voice cracking like thunder in the empty alley. But all that answered was the distant wail of a cable car and the echo of his laughter, wild and enchanted, fading into the night. In that moment, as lightning cracked the sky and illuminated the pentagram etched faintly on the wet pavement where he'd stood, I knew my ordinary life in the city by the bay had just been hexed forever. I never believed in magic. Not the fairy tale kind, anyway. Growing up in the foggy embrace of the Mission District, where murals of Aztec gods splashed color across Ticarius and rainbow flags fluttered from every other Victorian row house, my world was built on the tangible. The grind of barista shifts at the corner cafe, the hum of BART trains rattling under my apartment, the ache of unrequited crushes at pride parades that always left me nursing a sore heart and a hangover. Magic? That was for tourists snapping pics of the crooked Lombard Street or the witches' shops peddling crystals on Haight Street. I was Alex Rivera, 28, queer as a $3 bill, and firmly in the camp of what you see is what you get. Until Elias Blackwood crashed into my life like a spell gone gloriously, disastrously right. It started on a Thursday, the kind of drizzly autumn evening where the city smells like wet eucalyptus and possibility. I ducked into the Enchanted Brew, a hole-in-the-wall bookstore/coffee joint tucked between a vintage vinyl shop and a mural of Harvey Milk, to escape the downpour. The place was a fever dream of mismatched armchairs, towering shelves groaning under dusty tomes on astrology and alchemy, and a barista who looked like she'd stepped out of a Tim Burton film. I ordered my usual black coffee, extra strong, and settled into a corner with my laptop, pretending to job hunt while scrolling Grindr out of sheer boredom. That's when he walked in. Elias, tall, lean, with cheekbones sharp enough to cut fog and hair the color of midnight that fell in effortless waves to his shoulders. He wore a tailored wool coat over a band tee, something obscure like the Smiths crossed with occult runes, and his eyes, a piercing hazel that seemed to shift like leaves in wind, scanned the room as if he owned the shadows. He ordered something herbal and steaming, his voice a low rumble that made the barista blush, and then, as if the universe had scripted it, he turned and locked eyes with me. "Careful," he said, sliding into the chair across from me without invitation, a grin tugging at his lips like he knew a secret I didn't. "That stool's cursed. Last guy who sat there turned into a frog. Or was it a barista?" I laughed, nervous, genuine, because who wouldn't? Up close, he smelled like pine forests after rain and something sharper, like ozone before a storm. "Alex," I managed, extending a hand that felt suddenly too clammy. "And if you're hitting on me with frog jokes, your game's stronger than your pickup lines." "Elias," he replied, his grip warm and lingering, fingers tracing a lazy circle on my palm that sent a shiver up my spine. "And trust me, the game's just getting started." We talked for hours, or what felt like hours. The rain pounding the windows like impatient fingers, the bookstore emptying around us until it was just the two of us and the glow of fairy lights strung like captured stars. He was a freelance illustrator, he said, specializing in esoteric commissions, whatever that meant. Originally from Salem but drawn west by the city's vibrant energies. I spilled about my stalled graphic design career, the freelance gigs that paid in exposure, my abuela's tamales that could cure any homesickness. He listened like I was reciting poetry, his gaze never wavering, and when he leaned in to brush a raindrop from my collar, the air crackled. Not with tension, exactly, but with something electric, alive. By closing time, we were soaked again, dashing hand in hand to my apartment 3 blocks away, laughing like kids who'd stolen the moon. The kiss happened on my doorstep, impulsive and searing, his hands framing my face as if I were fragile porcelain. It was perfect until it wasn't. Midway through, as his lips parted against mine and I tasted the herbal sweetness of his drink, a gust of wind howled down the street, unnatural and fierce, ripping the kiss apart. Leaves and litter swirled in a miniature tornado at our feet, and Elias pulled back, eyes wide with alarm. "Shit!" he muttered, waving a hand like he was shooing a fly. The vortex sputtered and died, scattering debris harmlessly. Sorry. Old habit. I blinked, heart hammering for more than just the kiss. What the hell was that? He hesitated, that grin flickering like a faulty bulb. Just wind. San Francisco, right? Gale force everything. But his eyes darted to the sky, and I swear, the clouds parted just a fraction, moonlight spilling down like an apology. I let it slide because I was smitten, stupidly, gloriously so. We tumbled inside, shedding coats and pretenses, and spent the night not in bed, though the temptation hummed like a live wire, but on my sagging couch, trading stories over microwave popcorn and bootleg tequila. He told me about his eccentric family, aunts who read tarot like weather reports, a grandmother who'd once charmed a drought away. I chalked it up to colorful exaggeration, the kind of lore every immigrant family hoards like heirlooms. By dawn, as the fog rolled in thick as cream, I was hooked. Elias Blackwood wasn't just charming. He was a riptide, pulling me under with every sly smile. Our first real date was supposed to be simple. A sunset hike up Twin Peaks, the city's heartbeat laid bare in panoramic glory. I'd packed a picnic, cheese, crusty sourdough from Tartine, a bottle of Napa Red, dreaming of that classic rom-com moment where we'd clink glasses against the skyline and kiss as the sun dipped into the Pacific. Elias showed up in hiking boots and a flannel that hugged his shoulders just right, a satchel slung over one arm that clinked mysteriously. "You're early," I teased, pecking his cheek as he met me at the trailhead. The air was crisp, eucalyptus-scented, the path winding up through scrubby hills dotted with wildflowers. "Couldn't wait," he murmured, lacing his fingers through mine. "Besides, magic waits for no man or hike." I rolled my eyes. "Keep talking like that, and I'll think you're serious." His laugh was a cascade, warm and unforced, but there was an edge to it, like he was holding back a punchline. We climbed, conversation easy, debating the best food trucks in the Mission, him, Al Pastor tacos, me, banh mi fusion, sharing playlists, his heavy on indie folk with a dash of Gregorian chants. Halfway up, as the city sprawled below us like a glittering quilt, he stopped, pulling a small vial from his satchel. "To the view," he said, uncorking it. A faint shimmer escaped, like glitter in sunlight, and he dabbed a drop on my wrist. "Essence of clarity. Makes everything sharper." It tingled, cool and effervescent, and suddenly the colors popped. The golden grasses vivid, the bay a deeper azure, Elias's eyes flecked with secrets I wanted to unravel. "What is this stuff?" I asked, mesmerized. "Family recipe," he winked. "Don't worry, it's vegan." We crested the peak just as the sun began its descent, spreading out the blanket with a flourish. The wine flowed, loosening tongues and limbs, and when he leaned in for a kiss, slow and deliberate, the world narrowed to the brush of his lips, the salt of his skin. It was magic, all right, the real kind, born of chemistry and chance. Then the ground trembled. Not an earthquake, San Francisco's standby for drama, but a localized shudder, right under our picnic. The bottle tipped, wine spilling in a crimson arc that sizzled against the earth like acid. Elias bolted upright, face paling. "No, no, not now." Before I could process, the scrub around us erupted in flames. Not wildfire fierce, but contained, dancing blue tongues that formed shapes. Runes twisting and glowing. The air hummed with a low chant. Words I didn't recognize but felt in my bones. Ancient and insistent. Elias thrust his hands out, palms down, murmuring in a language that twisted like smoke. The fire obeyed, coiling back into embers that winked out one by one. I stared, wineglass forgotten in my hand. "Elias, what the fuck?" He collapsed beside me, breathing ragged, running a hand through his hair. "I told you my family's eccentric. Turns out, I'm the punchline." The truth spilled then, in halting confessions as the sun bled orange across the horizon. Elias Blackwood wasn't just an illustrator. He was a warlock, born into a line of them, descendants of Salem's survivors who'd fled west to weave spells in the shadows of redwoods and skyscrapers. His magic was innate, a gift and a curse, potent, unpredictable, tied to emotions like a faulty fuse. "It's why I moved here," he admitted, voice raw. "San Francisco's a nexus. Ley lines, old magic in the fog. Thought it'd ground me, but it amplifies everything, especially when I'm happy." "Happy?" I echoed, the word tasting like the wine on my tongue. "With you?" he said simply, vulnerability cracking his charm like lightning on porcelain. "You make me feel alive, Alex. And alive means spells backfiring spectacularly. I should have run, called it a beautiful delusion, blocked his number, chalked it up to the city's penchant for beautiful weirdos. But as he looked at me, hazel eyes pleading, hands trembling from the effort of containment, I saw not a freak, but a man terrified of his own heart. "Show me," I whispered, reckless. "One more time. For real." He did. A simple illusion. Fireflies, conjured from nothing, orbiting us in lazy golden loops. They lit his face, turning him ethereal, and when he kissed me again, the lights pulsed in rhythm with our breaths. No interruptions. Just us, suspended in a bubble of wonder atop the world. That night, back in my apartment, we didn't sleep. We mapped his magic like cartographers, him demonstrating cantrips over takeout foe, a levitating chopstick here, a flavor-enhancing whisper there, me asking questions until my throat ached. It was exhilarating, terrifying, intimate in a way no grinder hookup ever touched. For the first time, I felt seen, not as the nice gay guy with the steady job and the fixer-upper heart, but as someone capable of holding space for the impossible. Dating a warlock sounds like the premise of a queer rom-com. Sparks fly, literally, and every date ends with a bang, or a whoosh, or a suspiciously timed flock of pigeons. But reality, it's messier, laced with the kind of tension that simmers like a potion on the boil. Elias and I dove in headfirst, our connection a lifeline in the chaos his magic wrought. We navigated it with the stubborn optimism of two guys who'd grown up dodging the world's judgments, me, as the son of Mexican immigrants navigating microaggressions in tech bros playgrounds. Him as a warlock hiding his heritage in a city that celebrated everything except the truly arcane. Our second date was dinner at a hidden gem in the Castro, a speakeasy-style Italian spot called Vesuvio's, all exposed brick and candlelight flickering like conspirators. I'd reserved a corner booth, envisioning red wine and carbonara, hands brushing over tiramisu. Elias arrived flustered, his coat dusted with what looked like frost, impossible in the mild bay chill. "Portal mishap," he explained, sliding in beside me. "Tried shortcutting from the studio, ended up in the Sierras for a hot second." I raised an eyebrow, but the waiter interrupted with menus and we ordered pasta for me, risotto for him, a bottle of Chianti that arrived with a flourish. Conversation flowed like the wine. His latest commission, a tarot deck for a queer witch collective. My portfolio pitch to a startup that ghosted me mid-interview. Under the table, his knee pressed against mine, a steady anchor. Then, midway through the risotto, his fork hovered. Not dropped. Hovered. Suspended midair. Risotto pearl gleaming like a tiny moon. Elias's eyes widened comically. Not again. The utensil zipped away, clattering into the wine bottle, which tipped with a domino precision toward the candle. I lunged, catching it inches from disaster, but the candle flame leaped, igniting the tablecloth in a merry blue blaze. Gasps rippled from nearby tables. The waiter yelped, fumbling for a pitcher. Elias muttered under his breath, a frantic incantation that sounded like Latin mangled by autocorrect, and the fire shrank to a harmless sparkler, fizzling out with a pop. The restaurant held its breath. Then applause, spontaneous San Franciscan to the core. "Street magic," someone cheered from the bar. "Tip the wizard." Elias flushed crimson, charmingly so, and waved it off with a laugh. "Just a parlor trick, folks. Blame the wine." But as the waiter comped our meal, best show since drag brunch, I caught the tremor in his hands, the way he avoided my gaze. Outside, under the neon glow of Castro Street, rainbow crosswalks slick with drizzle. We walked in silence until he stopped, leaning against a lamppost etched with faded graffiti. "I'm sorry," he said, voice thick. "This is what it is, Alex. Me. Chaotic, unreliable. You deserve candlelit dinners without the pyrotechnics." I stepped close, cupping his face, thumbs tracing the sharp line of his jaw. "I deserve you," I said fiercely. "Fire and all. Besides, who needs normal when you've got flair?" He searched my eyes, doubt warring with hope, then pulled me into a kiss that tasted of Chianti and relief. The street lamps flickered, but it was just the wind, or so I told myself. From there, our rhythm emerged. Dates laced with anticipation and aftermath. A ferry ride to Alcatraz turned spectral when his mood soured at a tourist's bigoted mutter. Ghosts, real ones, he swore, whispered from the cells, drawing stares until he banished them with a snapped finger. Movie night at the Castro Theater devolved into chaos when the projector jammed mid-reel of Brokeback Mountain. Elias fixed it with a gesture, but the film sped up, Cowboys en Español, eliciting howls of laughter from the crowd. Each mishap chipped at his confidence, though leaving him withdrawn, sketching furiously in his notebook late into the night while I pretended to sleep beside him. Yet the connection deepened, woven from threads of vulnerability. One rainy Sunday, holed up in his loft in the dogpatch, a sunlit space crammed with easels, herb bundles drying from rafters, and a massive grimoire bound in what he swore was faux leather, we cooked brunch. I chopped onions. He whisked eggs, humming an old sea shanty that made the batter fluff impossibly high. As we ate on the fire escape, fog blanketing the bay like a lover's breath, he opened up about the weight of it all. "Warlock blood isn't a gift," he said, staring at the steam rising from his mug. "It's a tether. Spells demand balance, joy pulls power, but so does pain. My ex, he couldn't handle the swings. Left when I accidentally summoned a storm during an argument. Flooded his loft. Said I was too much. The word hung, heavy as the mist. I knew too much intimately. The queer kid told he was too flamboyant for family gatherings, too sensitive for corporate ladders. He was wrong, I said, squeezing his hand. You're exactly enough. More even." Elias's smile was tentative, blooming slow. "You say that now, but what if it hurts you?" "Then we weather it," I replied, pulling him close. "Together." That vulnerability forged us closer. We built rituals. Grounding stones he carved for me, smooth obsidian that warmed at my touch, warding off freelance anxiety. Playlists I curated to dampen the vibes during charged moments. Sex, we took it slow, exploratory. Kisses that lingered like incantations, touches that mapped each other's scars. No rush to the finish. It was about presence, the quiet magic of bodies aligning without spells to sabotage. But shadows loomed. Elias's commissions dried up, clients whispering about cursed illustrations that came alive overnight. His family called from Salem, voices tinny over the line. "The coven's gathering, Elias. The eclipse. You can't ignore your duty." He brushed it off, but I saw the strain, the way his sketches turned darker, runes bleeding into portraits of fractured lovers. One evening, after a gallery opening in Soma where a minor levitation spell, meant to impress, instead lofted an entire cheese platter into the rafters, we argued. Not yelling. San Francisco queer couples don't do histrionics, but sharp words in the cool night air outside. "You're pushing it away," I accused, as partygoers milled past, oblivious. "This eclipse thing, it's eating you. It's not your world, Alex," he snapped, hazel eyes flashing. "Magic isn't a hobby. It's blood. Legacy. If I falter, then let me in." I shot back, voice breaking. "We're in this, remember? Or was that just another interrupted plan?" He deflated, reaching for me, but a crackle split the air. Static, ozone, and thunder rumbled overhead, unforecast. Rain lashed down in sheets, drenching us instantly. Elias groaned, summoning a hasty ward. An invisible dome that parted the downpour around us, like a bubble in a car wash. We stood there, soaked and staring, until laughter bubbled up, absurd and cathartic. Fine, he conceded, forehead against mine. Eclipse is in 2 weeks. Full lunar over the bay. The coven's ritual, binding a rift, old magic threatening to spill. I have to anchor it. Take me, I said, simple as that. His eyes widened. You'd? For you? Anywhere. The nights leading up blurred into a montage of preparation and passion. He taught me basics. Not spells, but awareness. Breathing with the city's pulse. Feeling the ley lines hum underfoot like subway vibrations. We made love under star charts pinned to his ceiling. Bodies tangled in sheets scented with sage. Whispers of I love you, slipping out like unguarded charms. I said it first, over coffee one dawn, watching him trace sigils in the foam. I love you, Elias. Magic and messes. He froze, then smiled, soft as fog lifting. Love you too, Alex. More than any spell. But love, in stories like ours, invites tempests. The betrayal came subtly, a serpent in the garden of our borrowed time. I'd noticed the late nights, Elias slipping out after I dozed, returning with frost-kissed cheeks and evasion on his lips. Client stuff, he'd murmur, but his sketches filled with a new figure. A man, sharp-featured, with eyes like shattered amber. I trusted, foolish perhaps, but jealousy gnawed, a quiet hex. Crested the week before the eclipse. I came home early from a design meetup, key turning in the lock to silence broken only by murmurs from the bedroom. Heart in throat, I pushed the door open. Elias, shirtless, back to me, facing a spectral figure, holographic, shimmering like heat haze. The man, Julian, I learned later, leaned in, lips brushing Elias's ear, words in that twisting tongue. You can't run forever, love. The rift needs us both, as it always has. Elias tensed, pulling away. That was lifetimes ago, Julian. I'm bound now to him. The specter laughed, cold as grave dirt. A mundane? He'll break under the weight. Come back. Seal it with me as coven wills. I fled before the tears came, pounding pavement through the mission's neon veins. Past pupuserias pulsing with cumbia. Drag queens hawking roses under streetlights. Betrayal burned. Not just the ghost of an ex, a Warlock paramour, tied by blood oaths, but the secrecy, the assumption I couldn't handle the full truth. Elias found me at our spot. Dolores Park, bench under the palm, city lights winking like fallen stars. Alex, don't. I cut him, voice steel wrapped in hurt. How long? Julian's. Echo. From the rift. Not real, not now. But the coven's pulling strings. They want me back, say I'm unstable without him. It's politics, legacy. Lies, I whispered. You should have trusted me. He knelt, rain from an earlier squall beating on his lashes. I was scared of losing you to this world. Then choose, I demanded, echoing ultimatums I'd heard in every queer heartbreak ballad. Us or them. The silence stretched, taut as a bowstring. Finally, he nodded, resolute. Us. The eclipse eve dawned brittle. The sky over San Francisco a bruise of purples and grays, as if the city itself held its breath. Elias and I patched our rift with tentative stitches. Late-night talks over herbal tea, where he laid bare the coven's machinations. Julian, not just an ex, but a binding partner from his initiation. Their magic entwined like lovers' limbs. The rift, a tear in the veil between worlds, widened by modern cynicism bleeding into ancient pacts, demanded a dual anchor. They think I'm adrift without him, Elias confessed, tracing my palm with a finger that sparked faint light. But you're my center now. I wanted to believe it, clung to the warmth in his voice, the way he anchored me with kisses that tasted of resolve. Yet doubt lingered, a shadow spell coiling in my gut. We'd face the ritual together, he promised, at Land's End, where ley lines converged under the Sutro Bath's ruins, the Pacific crashing like a chorus of forgotten gods. Just watch, he said. Hold space. Your presence grounds me. The day blurred. Me sketching logos for a queer nonprofit to steady my hands. Elias in his loft brewing elixirs that glowed like bioluminescent waves. By dusk, we drove the winding roads to the headlands, his vintage Mustang rumbling like a charmed beast, radio tuned to static-laced indie that warped into ethereal howls. The parking lot was empty. Coven's glamour, he explained, veiling the sight from mundanes. We hiked the trail, salt wind whipping our faces, my hand in his a lifeline against the chill. The ruins loomed. Crumbling concrete pools cradling tide pools, ghosts of Victorian excess etched against the cliff. The Coven waited. 7 figures in cloaks the color of midnight fog, faces half-shadowed by hoods. They nodded to Elias, eyes appraising me like an exotic specimen. The mundane, one murmured, a woman with silver braids like ley lines. Bold choice. He's no mundane, Elias snapped, arm around my waist. He's mine. The ritual circle etched itself in the sand. Runes glowing as they chanted, low and rhythmic, pulling at the air like threads from a loom. Elias stepped to the center, vial in hand, but hesitated, glancing back. Stay close, he mouthed. I nodded, heart thundering as the moon began its slide, shadow eating light. The rift yawned invisible but felt. A pressure, like the world inhaling too deep, winds howling from nowhere, carrying whispers of alternate realms. Laughter in tongues long dead, scents of foreign blooms. Elias raised his arms, incantation rolling from him like thunder wrapped in silk. Power surged, visible now. Blue veins of energy crackling along the circle, feeding into him. He shone, radiant, every line of his body a conduit. Pride swelled in me, fierce and unyielding. This was my Warlock, chaos tamed by will. Then Julian materialized. Not a specter this time, but flesh and blood, stepping from the rift like a nightmare given form. Tall, angular, with amber eyes that burned like foxfire, clad in a cloak embroidered with serpents. The Coven parted for him, murmurs of approval rippling. Elias, he purred, voice honey over razors. You called, even if you won't admit it. Elias faltered, the energy stuttering. I didn't. The blood knows, Julian said, circling him, fingers trailing Elias's arm, igniting sparks that weren't his alone. Our binding, the rift feeds on it, on us. Betrayal revisited, sharper now. The Coven had orchestrated it, the late calls, the echoes, pushing Julian through as the true anchor. Elias's eyes met mine, panic raw. Alex! But the rift widened, reality fraying. Visions assaulted us, overlays of what-ifs. I saw Elias and Julian entwined in a stormlit tower, magic blooming wild. Then Elias alone, withered by suppression. Me, fading into gray normalcy without him. The wind screamed, pulling at clothes, sand scouring skin. Coven members staggered, cloaks whipping like flags in gale. Seal it, the silver-braided woman commanded. Together, Julian lunged, grasping Elias's hand, their magics merging in a blaze that lit the night azure. Elias cried out, pain, ecstasy, and the rift began to knit, threads pulling taut. But his face twisted, not in triumph, but torment. The binding, it drained him, siphoning essence through Julian's grip, their old pact of vampire's kiss. Couldn't watch. Stop, I roared, lunging into the circle, mundane hands shoving at Julian's chest. No magic in me, just fury, love, a force as old as any spell. Julian reeled, amber eyes widening in shock. What? The contact broke them apart. Elias gasped, collapsing to knees, but the energy recoiled, slamming back into the rift like a reverse tide. Chaos erupted. The circle shattered, runes exploding in harmless fireworks. Coven members hurled back by backlash, cloaks singed. The rift howled defiance, then sealed, not by blood, but by interruption, the raw will of an outsider's touch. Julian vanished, sucked back with a final snarl, the rift zipping shut like a healed scar. Silence fell, broken only by waves and Elias's ragged breaths. The Coven rose, glaring daggers, accusations bubbling. Reckless. The balance. Enough? Elias snarled, rising, power still crackling at his fingertips. He faced them unbowed. The rifts closed. By my choice, our pact ends here. The silver-braided one stepped forward, eyes narrowing on me. A mundane's interference? Unprecedented. Dangerous. Life's dangerous. Elias shot back, pulling me to his side. Love more so. We're done. Murmurs crested to outrage, but he waved a hand. Dismissal laced with ward, and the coven dispersed, cloaks folding into mist, leaving only echoes of chants on the wind. We stood alone, moon fully eclipsed now, a corona of silver framing us like a vow. You could have died, Elias whispered, clutching me, body trembling from exertion. What were you thinking? That I couldn't lose you, I said, voice hoarse. Not to ghosts, not to duty. He laughed, watery and wondrous, burying his face in my neck. My hero, no magic required. We drove back in silence, the Mustang's heater blasting against chill that went bone deep. At his loft, we collapsed into bed, limbs entangled, exhaustion a gentle tide. The coven's not done, he murmured into my hair. Julian, he'll push, but I choose you, always. Sleep claimed us, but dawn brought reckoning. My phone buzzed, texts from unknown numbers. Warnings, veiled threats. Leave the Warlock, or regret. Elias's loft wards flickered, straining against probes. The betrayal's echo. Not just Julian, but the coven's web, viewing me as the flaw in their perfect weave. We fortified, runes on doors, salt lines at thresholds. But the strain showed. Elias's magic waned, rebound from the ritual sapping his spark. Sketches lay half-finished, colors muted. I threw myself into work, landing a gig designing apps for a trans-led health collective. But nights were haunted by what-ifs. Love, we'd learned, wasn't a shield. It was a beacon drawing shadows. The climax brewed midweek, fog thick as conspiracy. Elias vanished during a quick errand. To the apothecary, he'd said. Hours stretched. Panic clawed. I scoured the city. Hates occult shops. Nothing. The Embarcadero's piers. Empty echoes. Finally, a tip from the barista at the Enchanted Brew. Saw your guy. Argued with a sharp one. Headed to the bridge. The Golden Gate at dusk. Rust-red icon against bruised skies. Traffic a distant hum. I raced the span on foot. Wind tearing at my jacket. Heart a war drum. There, midway, Elias and Julian. Silhouettes against the rail. Words lost to gusts but gestures violent. Julian thrusting a talisman. Elias batting it away. Blue sparks clashing with amber. Elias! I yelled, weaving through tourists, who parted like charmed waters. Julian whirled, face a mask of fury. You again. The anchor breaker. Elias's eyes lit on me, relief flooding. Alex, run! But Julian chanted, rift tendrils snaking from the bay below. Inky voids lashing up, wrapping Elias's ankles, pulling. He fought, magic flaring, but weakened. It sputtered. Julian advanced, hand extended. Come, end this farce. No, I charged, tackling Julian, not strategy, just desperation. Mundane against arcane. We grappled, his skin fever-hot, mine slick with sweat. You don't own him, I growled, fist connecting with jaw. He reeled, incantation breaking, tendrils recoiling. Elias surged free, channeling residual power into a blast that hurled Julian back. Not killing, but banishing, his form dissolving into fog with a wail. The bridge trembled, not quake but aftershock, rail buckling slightly before steadying. Elias caught me as I staggered, both of us collapsing against the rail, breaths mingling. You saved me, he panted. Again. We saved each other? I corrected, kissing him fierce, salt wind our witness. In the aftermath, San Francisco wrapped us in its indifferent embrace. Cable cars clanging onward, sourdough bakeries firing ovens at dawn. The city a mosaic of lives intersecting without pause. Julian's banishment bought time, But the coven circled, subtle as fog. Anonymous packages of withered herbs at our door, whispers in occult forums warning of the tainted Warlock and his mundane curse. Elias's magic stabilized, but scarred. Stronger in bursts, yet prone to echoes, like a radio tuned to ghost stations. We adapted as lovers do. Moved to a warded cottage in No Valley, its gingerbread trim hiding sigils etched in the eaves. I thrived in my new role, app designs blooming with Elias's subtle inspirations. Interfaces that felt intuitive, clients raving about the magical UX. He pivoted commissions to queer covens, illustrating spells for empowerment. His art a bridge between worlds. Dates evolved. Picnic sans peril, grounding charms tucked in baskets, hikes with talismans against whims. Intimacy deepened, not in frenzy but quiet revelation. Mornings tracing tattoos. His runes, my abuela's roses. Evenings debating ethics over IPA at corner pubs. Yet the humanistic core of it all, the raw, unspelled truth, emerged in fractures. One night, post-riff tremor that cracked our teapot. Harmless, but a reminder. Elias broke. Curled on the couch, head in my lap, he wept. Not for power lost, but isolation's toll. I was alone so long, he confessed. Hiding sparks to fit. You see the fire, not the burn. I stroked his hair, voice steady. Fire warms too, and we're building a hearth. Betrayal scar faded, not erased. Julian resurfaced once. A letter slipped under door. The rift mends, but bonds break. Choose wisely. Elias burned it. Ashes scattering on balcony wind, but it stirred reflection. He wasn't wrong, he admitted over breakfast. Magic isolates, but love, it connects. The true climax wasn't spectacle, but choice. The coven summoned, a neutral ground, the Presidio's hidden grove under ancient oaks. They came not in cloaks, but business casual. The silver-braided elder, now Mira, in chinos and pearls. Others with laptops etched in subtle glyphs. No threats, just dialogue San Francisco style over fair trade coffee. You're missed, Mira said, eyes kind but firm. The rift's echo lingers. We need anchors like you, Elias. Unbound. He glanced at me, hand under table squeezing mine. I'm bound, differently, to a life that includes both. Debate flowed. Legacy versus liberty. Coven's rigidity against the city's fluidity. I spoke, nervous, but clear, on mundane strengths. Resilience without spells. Love unfiltered by power. Magic's gift, I said. But humanity's the real enchantment. They listened, not convinced overnight, but seeds planted. Mira nodded. A trial, then. Ate us quietly. Prove the bridge. Elias agreed, cautious. We left arm in arm, oaks whispering approval. Months wove into seasons. Spring brought cherry blossoms to our street. Pride a riot of color where Elias levitated confetti harmlessly, drawing cheers. Summer, we road-tripped Highway 1, magic minimal, his hand in mine, Pacific endless. Fall, my abuela visited, mistaking his tricks for sleight of hand, blessing us with rosaries and recipes. Winter solstice marked a year. We stood on Twin Peaks again. Picnic evolved. No wine, but hot cocoa steaming wards against chill. The city twinkled below, a constellation of queer lights. Bars pulsing, homes aglow. Elias pulled a ring from pocket. Not diamond, but obsidian, carved with intertwined initials, pulsing faint warmth. Not marriage, he said, voice thick. Not yet, but promise. To weather interruptions. To choose us always. I slipped it on, tears blurring stars. Yes, 1,000 times. Our kiss sealed it, no sparks, no storms. Just connection, enduring as the fog that cradled the bay. In the end, it wasn't magic that saved us, but the mundane miracle of two men, flawed and fierce, building a world where plans bent but never broke. Elias's power found balance. Coven allying tentatively, Julian a faded specter. I learned spells aren't in words, but wills, hours intertwined, a quiet revolution against isolation. San Francisco watched, indifferent yet indulgent. as we walked hand in hand into whatever hexed horizon awaited. Love, after all, is the strongest charm. Unpredictable, eternal, profoundly human.